Well, good afternoon. I am Jeff Vega, the host of Minority Voice, and today we've got a special event. It's called the Minority Town Hall Focus Group, and we're here in Richland, Michigan, a little community in Kalamazoo County, and we're talking to a few individuals about issues concerning the minority community. And so at this time, I would like to introduce my panel to you, and starting with Mona Lisa.
Yes.
So go ahead, you start it.
All right. Hello, my name is Mona Lisa Watson. I live in Portage, Michigan, here in Kalamazoo County. I am currently a stay-at-home mom slash at-home virtual teacher, sometimes with my 9-year-old daughter who's in the 3rd grade. Previously, I was in the arena of leading organizations as far as healthcare, community-based organizations. And then I found myself diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And I am now cancer-free, yay. But because of that, I ended up on disability. And so now I get a chance and an opportunity actually to stay home, pour into my daughter, and contribute to my community in a very meaningful way. And I found myself extremely blessed because of that.
Awesome. All right.
So my name's John Rocha. I live in Portage as well. I'm a single father, Mexican-American. I lost my job due to COVID. I was a senior director of operations for manufacturing facilities. And since then, it's been extremely difficult. I have not found work at all. You know, hundreds of applications, only a few interviews. But it's, again, I consider myself blessed as well. It's given me the opportunity to reach out to the community and kind of really get into what's going on, the nuts and bolts of the community, and what's really affecting people. And I can do this right now, even in the mornings, talking to people at lunchtime, doing these things. And so I consider myself blessed to be able to do that. I am a registered Republican conservative, so that's kind of where my political leanings are at. And then right now, that's all I'm doing. I'm currently running for office for this congressional district. And so that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome.
Great. My name is Alice Burris, and I wear many titles. I'm a veteran of the Armed Forces. I served during the Gulf War. I'm also an ordained minister, getting ready to do training for a higher level in the ministry. I have 5 children and I'm married. I took care of my dad and my grandmother for over 25 years. I'm a current student at Western Michigan. I'm a junior right now, and I'll be hopefully graduating next year. My major is English, secondary education, and my minor is history. I love history and I love English. So I'm proceeding with going to get a bachelor's in that field. My affiliation, I'm a little bit of both. I'm a little bit because I love some things on the Republican side. I love some things on the Democratic side. So I don't want to swing one way or the
You're
other.
independent then.
I'm just, I have some likes on both sides of the issues. And
Awesome.
it's a little bit about
That's great. Great. So let me start off with this. And we'll start with you again, Mona Lisa. What is the most important issue to you?
Wow, that's a loaded question. The most important issue right now is making sure that my daughter grows up in a community where she feels safe, valued, and where she can truly be herself and realize the purpose for which she was born.
Okay. All right. Now let me follow that up with what is the most important issue you feel in the Black community?
In the Black community, wow. Depending on who you really talk to, it does seem as if opportunity, economic opportunity, is a really, really big deal right now. From my conversations in the African American and Black community, so not only speaking to people who are descendants of individuals who were enslaved, but also individuals who have immigrated here from Africa, England, different places who I also identify as Black. The main reason that a lot of folks are kind of assembling together is to talk about economic opportunity and how that manifests itself in your largely urban areas, as well as how it manifests itself in the individual's life. So economic opportunity, I think, is really kind of the issue in how to access economic opportunity in a way that is consistent, and also in a way that you can pass down to your children through legacy and inheritances. It's kind of the issue that I hear a lot about. So a lot of folks are now becoming entrepreneurial. I'm talking to a lot of people who are looking at different ways of having different income streams, and also talking about the constraints that exist in the current systems that we live in that's kind of preventing people from being able to realize where they really want to be economically.
Awesome. I don't know if you know this, but of all the immigrants who come into America, the Africans are the most successful in business.
Absolutely.
John, same question to you. What's the most important issue that you face, and then what's the most important issue you think in the Hispanic community?
I think one of the biggest issues is just the ability and the opportunity to have fair opportunities for everyone. I think that's important. Regardless of race, color, or creed, I think it's extremely important. I think it's an issue that everybody can get on track with. We have to be able to lift voices and lift people up, and everybody has those issues from every single sector. Hispanic communities is being hit right now, especially particularly hard on the border and the crisis that's happening right now. I know this community has a very large Hispanic population, which was very shocking for me as I grew up, learning that for some reason Kalamazoo tended to be a hot spot for Hispanics, but it's really, really cool. And then the second part of the question, I'm sorry, what was
So
for Hispanics?
For you personally, what is the major issue?
Again, I believe that for me, especially Hispanics, would be immigration reform. I think a lot of Hispanics really want to come here for the opportunity, and a lot of them are fearful, especially with the things they hear, the misinformation they hear about coming to America, what they can and can't do, the problems that persist. And I think immigration reform is a big thing, and I think both sides want to see that, but I think it's a disagreement as to how they reach that. But I think America being the greatest country, and again, in my opinion, in the world, people want to be here, and I want people to be here. We just got to do a better job of making sure we grab a hold of those people, help them out, and help them succeed in our communities.
Okay, same question to you. For yourself and for the Black community.
I never really thought about it, to be perfectly honest. My thoughts would come from the media and what I'm seeing on the television, from the news, whether it be local, world, or just the news. I've really never thought about it, but if I had to think and give a response, it would be for respect across the board. Before we can be unified in the Black community particularly, we have to have some sense of respect for one another in our community. That's what I'm seeing from the news media. There's no respect. We can't expect other races outside of our own to give us the respect we're looking for if we're not respectful to one. And when I mean that word respect, because a lot of people throw it around, another word I've been hearing is unifying. It's really impossible to unify if there is no sense of empathy for each individual. in the community. I'm learning that from the different classes I've taken, especially in history. History does teach us a lot about ourselves and where we're going to be at in the future if we don't change some things, not only for my race, but I'm also learning about, it's funny, the Hispanic race. I knew little about the Hispanic race until I've taken different courses in my studies. I'm learning about the Indian race and the Asian race. So I'm getting a sense of not just my own race, but the different races that live here within our country, and the lack of respect that each race has. People in general just have to start getting some sense of empathy and some sense of sympathy toward individuals. We're not all, I believe you were saying, the same. Everybody's different, and we have this thing where everybody is in one thing, but no, everybody is individual. They're dealing with their own issues and circumstances. And if people can have a thought or some concern about their fellow man, as far as, okay, that person thinks that way, they have the right to, without having no negative response in way that person is thinking or feeling, because that is what the person is, thinking and feeling. And if we can have some empathy, that's what my most concern would be within my community as an African American Black person.
That's great. Did you read my note cards? Because my next question that I'm going to ask leads right up into what you've been talking about. And so I will start with you. So 2 parts to the questions, and I'll try to make them 2 parts. So the first part of this question is, what is your perception of your community, the Black community? And then the second part of it, what do you feel is the perception of the Black community in other ethnic groups, from other ethnic groups? So your perspective first.
My perspective would be the stereotype perspective. The different stereotypes that's been placed on the Black community. My thought is, and I've been brought up, however the way you leave out of your front door, that's how people are going to portray you. You might be the brightest, intelligent, smart person in the world, but appearances speak volumes. Your first impression that a person sees when they sees you speak volumes. So, for example, I'm out and about, not as much. I'm normally at the pharmacy or an appointment or getting something for home and headed back. The first thing I see as far as an African American or Black person is their appearance, how they dress, their speech. And if it's that stereotypical thing that's coming from being perceived or coming from them, then I'm like, well, they're putting themselves in that stereotype that everybody in the community is perceiving them as. So getting out of the stereotype when I see my culture, my people, I don't like to see the stereotype is basically when you see a Black person, the first thing that the outside races see is something of a negative sense. It's nothing positive when they see, especially when it's a group of us together. And 9 times out of 10, if they haven't been trained, because it goes by the person's upbringing, their environment that they were raised in, the people who they were brought up by, the role models that they look up to, the different music that they listen to. What I've learned over my schooling and from my church setting is whatever you listen to or put in, that's what kind of person you're going to end up becoming or going to attribute to. So if a person in my community could start putting in some positive stuff within their day, and I know we have in our culture the hip hop and R&B and all, yeah, because I grew up in Detroit as well, on the east side, Jefferson,
Out
and
Southwest.
yeah, okay. We listened to R&B. I didn't know anything about church music until I got into my late teens or early teens, rather. So we listened to R&B, we listened to hip hop and stuff of that nature.
Probably a little bit of Motown too, right?
Yes, we grew up with that. That is the upbringing that I had when I was coming back. It wasn't until I got at Oakland University where things changed. They gave me culture. They expanded my thinking and precepts of other cultures and people, and my world changed. So if our community, speaking about the Black community, can get outside of this negative thing and this stereotype that we've put ourselves in, a lot of African Americans, I don't know, and this is my thoughts and opinions, but I think they feel that this is how it has been, this is how it's going to be, and this is where, but change has got to come if we want something positive. And with that, me being from other races and cultures, we have to think outside the box. When it comes, we can't be narrow-minded and thinking it's all about us, because from my perspective and my upbringing, I was taught that everybody has issues from all sorts of walks of life. And then it even reinforced it when I got into education, as far as, because I went to Kalamazoo Valley, I went to Western Community, or Wayne Community College, I'm trying to say, in Detroit. And with all of that education, it helped broaden my insight of people within my race and outside of my race. So we just have to get outside of the stereotypes if we don't want those precepts put on us any longer. We have to start thinking outside of the box. There's nothing wrong with learning about another race or culture. It'll help us as a people understand, hey, we have a little bit of that in us, because from doing a DNA, my sister did one for me, and her and my other sister. I have in Africa, South African. I have a little bit of Asian in me, and I have a little bit of one other race that's in my system. So we're not all just one race. We have a hodgepodge of different DNA on the inside of us. So if we could just get outside the thinking that we have, it would probably help our race become more friendlier towards other people, and it would probably also help our precepts as far as negativity. There's a lot of hostility within my race for many different reasons and volumes, and we just have to get past that, because hostilities and violence never change a culture at all. but it just brought about more hostility and violence.
Okay. So John, like me as Hispanic, I grew up in Southwest Detroit. At the time when I grew up, it wasn't a Hispanic community, but now if you go there now, it's a Hispanic community.
Sure.
It's kind of ironic that, after I moved out, it became a Hispanic community. But so let me ask you the same thing. First, did you grow up in a Hispanic community?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so-
Right here in that. So with the Hispanic community, the perception on the inside is, nobody takes it seriously unless they need work to be done, right? But inside there's so much tradition and fun and culture, and we're just so wild and crazy, see these stereotypical Mexican parties, and that really is what we are. We're just fun and flamboyant, and we have such a good time. But then when it comes to the outside, I really feel people see it as we're sturdiest, we're hard workers, and then from that we just separate. That's it. There's nothing else. Hard workers. That's it. Go home. And then we stick with our own group and people, and then we do all the other things. That's why our family celebrations are so large. That's why they're so flamboyant. That's why there's such a good time. I think the perception from the outside is a lot of the same thing. I think there's two different perceptions. People who believe that immigrations or illegal immigrants are going to take their jobs and steal them, and then they're here to kind of reap what Americans have already sown, and they're scared of that. But those same people also believe that the legal immigrants that are here are good law-abiding citizens, and they're hard workers. That's, again, it's a stereotype that you hear is Mexicans will work their tails off, and you'll see them do it. And it's true. We are very, very hard workers, and we're very studious with that. But again, the perception is there's two different types of Hispanics, right? There's the legal ones that are hard workers in good parts of the community, and then there's the illegal ones that are after everything that you've worked your heart off for and that America is about. And I think changing that perception, because as I alluded to it earlier, Hispanics are just coming here for a better life. We just need to go ahead. Again, an issue near and dear to my heart is that immigration reform. Bring them in here, reform it, allow them to be a part of the society. And I think you take that whole system, that perception, and you change it. Because again, I think that perception is those illegal immigrants are just here to destroy everything, and they don't. They want to work just like all the other legal immigrants that are here. They want to work. They want to provide for their family. So let's give them that opportunity. Let's come together. Let's actually change that process so that we can afford that to them instead of trying to make them the mountain that they are.
And let me add to that too, before we go to you, Mona Lisa. Most Hispanics, and I would say the vast majority of Hispanics in the United States are against illegal immigration.
Yes.
Okay, contrary to what those on the outside who want to make it an issue say, but that's how we really feel. And I would say, let me just add this too. Don't want to get too much of my own personal things into this, but the one thing that I can appreciate about coming to America, these immigrants, they're coming to America because they heard about the American dream.
Yes.
And the sad part about it is I think a lot of Americans have forgotten that there is an American dream out there for us to obtain. But that being said, Mona Lisa, go ahead. Your perception of your black community, and then what do you think the other think of the black community?
So, my perception of the black community is that the black community is full of subcultures and groups. And because of that, I think that depending on which part of the culture in the black community one interacts with, they develop their perception of a totality. It's kind of like we're a monolith, and we're not. My family migrated here to Michigan and Illinois area from the South. And my family also were indigenous to America. So historically, and we have kept up with our history for a very long time, we have not been able to find where we started out in West Africa, for instance. Our family has always been here. We have always had land. So because of that, we carry a tradition with us. and has been passed down through generations. Most recently, we lost the patriarch in our family. And that patriarch came from the South. He built up a life in the Chicago area, and the legacy, can be seen for itself. And so as we were celebrating his life, we were celebrating everything about ourselves and what we have been raised to believe about ourselves. We really can't speak to anybody outside of our family. I think that there are times when people meet my family, I've been asked what island my family's from, and we're not from an island, we're right here from America. So because of that, but what that has given me an opportunity to see is that there are familial cultures, there are other subcultures, and then there's a broader culture. So no matter where people who identify Black go, there are certain nuances in our culture that we can identify with. And that's the stuff that we celebrate. We celebrate the sense of the head nod because we know what that means. Or when a Black woman says to another Black woman, "Hey girl," we know what that means. And so those things are celebrated. I think we kind of get stuck because we don't always appreciate the fact that we are not a monolith, that we all have different experiences, that we all have different traditions and different mores. And because of that, that makes us very unique even within a setting or a type of culture, a racial culture, if you will. So I think, as far as my perception, I love people who identify as Black. I love the culture. I think that we need to do a better job of protecting our culture. I think even though those individuals who are descendants of enslaved people need to do a better job of protecting that, because now this is where I go on the external. The perception is that people who are descendant of those who are enslaved are not as intelligent, are kind of an underclass, if you will, subsection group. I've heard from certain political parties that they do not believe that people who identify as African American do not have IDs, or birth certificates, things like that. And I'm looking like, what Black person are you talking to who doesn't have some form of ID? But there's a perception from, I think there are groups who perceive that somehow they have to rescue us or save us because we don't have the sense to do it ourselves. And that's the part that I reject, of course. But there's also a part of people who appreciate what we bring around the table, know that we bring a sense of family around the table, a sense of tradition around the table. I just really would like for my community to really understand that tradition is not bad, that we do need to celebrate our history and really delve into the richness of our history. We have individuals who, even during you talk about history, when you think about during the most oppressive time in this country with legalized apartheid against our people, that somehow we were still able to own land. We still were able to invent and create things. A lot of things that we enjoy now are because of the patents that were gotten long time ago by individuals who had time, Black individuals who created things, the broom, all of that stuff.
You'll find, if you study history, the Black community has created and invented a lot of things that people don't know. That's one of my little sticking points. I love history, and usually in February, because that's Black History Month, I share with my Black friends, did you know this? Did you know that? And it's like, no, I didn't. Well, how'd you know? Well, I studied. But you know what, one thing I like, what you just said, that I think is missing, I know in our culture, when you use the term patriarch, there's a sense of respect for the elders and what they did and what they bring to the family. And you don't hear that too often anymore, in which I think that's part of, you losing the past and what's important to that. So as we move on, what do you feel is the most important issue facing our nation as a whole?
The most important issue that's facing our nation as a whole is really identifying who we are. You know, I hear people refer to America as many of things. One of my favorites is the Great American Experiment. I think that as a country, because we're still fairly young compared to other countries, we really need to have a better sense and idea of who we are as a country, and really then build our institutions around that. And I don't think that we have a good sense of that. I don't think that we have celebrated the ideals that kind of made America become America. I was just talking to my husband about this, and I said, you know, you usually find articles of incorporation with businesses, you know, or with corporations. And so when you think about it from that perspective, what is it that America wants? You know, it's similar to what we do for people who sit around, who are leaders in different businesses. You have a time to kind of sit down and strategize our vision. And depending on where you are, your vision sometimes changes. And what's our mission? What's our purpose? What do we do? And what do we do well as a country? Where do we want to go from here? So those type of things, I think that's where the opportunity really lies, is that we really need to somehow figure out how do we define our mission as a country, and then our vision. Where do we want to go from here? And what type of country do we want to leave our children and our children's children?
John.
I will agree with you, and I'll piggyback on that. I think right now, the divisiveness that we find in our country, it's ripping itself apart. And I don't think anybody could say otherwise. And I think finding that unifying factor that says, you know, who are we? We're Americans. You know, African American, Mexican, it doesn't matter, we're Americans, and really truly identifying what that means and rallying behind that, and not saying, well, I'm black, well, I'm Mexican, well, I'm left, I'm right, I'm libertarian. No, we're Americans. And having that identity, and then being able to rally behind that and say, yes, we are, and we can fix this. You know, we're not all going to agree on things. There's so many topics and so many things, issues we could talk about and digest and have nuances and talks about, and that's fine. I think that's absolutely okay, and I think we can maintain our identity and our traditions as individuals. You know, I definitely don't want to lose the tamale in my family. That's one of my biggest. I love tamales, and you know, I don't want to lose that. But you can still keep that and maintain those traditions, and still rally behind the central theme and the idea that we are all Americans. We're in this fight together, and we're here to support each other. And for the American experience. I think that's the biggest thing. And if we get behind that, I think the divisiveness starts to tone down. Now, you're always going to have outside agitators. It's always going to happen. It doesn't matter how utopian of a society you could create. It will always happen. It's just humanity and as a whole. But I think as a whole, we can do that. And I really feel there are people out there that want that to happen. I think the majority of people want that to happen. They don't want to see this country destroyed. They love it at its core. We just have to agree that there is a central theme, a central idea, and that is being American.
Yeah. You know, I tell people all the time when they ask me, I said, I'm a second generation American of Mexican descent. Because first and foremost, I'm American. Yes. And, you know, I was fortunate enough, my grandparents, they came over here, and I know my grandmother, she was adopted as, she was an orphan, she was adopted. So we don't know where her family came from. My grandfather, you know, I don't know if he ever became an American citizen. But, you know, as I said, you know, I'm an American of Mexican descent. So what do you think the major issue is facing America right now?
There is not one specific major. If there are many issues facing Americans right now, we would be here all day trying to talk about it. Mm-hmm. To me, there are many issues facing Americans right now, and it's funny. I'm hearing the word America, the Americans. I'm not hearing United States of America. And I said, well, that's fitting, because we're not united as states. We just had Georgia do something different with the voting rights. We got Michigan, I'm hearing, is doing something different with the voting rights. So that's safe to say America not united, because we're not united of America, United States of America. If I had to pick one in particular issue, and the main issue at hand is this virus that has a lot of people just confused about it, just hesitant about it. They don't know what to do. They don't know who to believe. They don't know if they should do this or they should do that. That's my main issue. We can't have an America if we got a virus running rampant that some people don't believe is actually existing. Then you got others that do believe is existing, but it's just a common cold or flu. Then you got those that are extremists. That's one reason why I'm wearing my mask, because I'm listening to the doctors that are in charge. Even with them, they don't even have the direct answers or facts on what is what. So if we can focus on one issue at a time, then I would think the next issue outside of this virus would be the hostilities and hate that's going on in this country. I said in the beginning, there can never be unification if there's no respect. Individually, when we are out in public, in our own communities, we see people don't even say hi anymore. I'm a friendly person. I got that from my father. He was not only friendly, but he took in people off the streets sometimes, helping people, giving folks things. He was, if I should say, the patriarch of my family, my intermediate family, and those who grew up with him. And that's where I got a lot of my ways and characters from, because when I see people, was instilled in me, never stare at people. If you're gonna stare at somebody, say hi or something. You just don't, it's just disrespectful and rude to walk past somebody and stare at them and don't say anything. So when I see people and I notice they're staring at, how you doing today? Or, it's a good day, or something positive, but we don't have that anymore. And that's because this country has lost respect. It starts at the top and it trickles down into the communities. And I believe that if we get our health in this pandemic, which is still alive and well, under control, my issue would be this hate and violence that's going on, that's stemming from lack of respect. When people lose respect, starting from the top, which is our government, when they have no respect for each other, then the people will have no respect for each other.
Yeah, there's a lot of fighting going on in Washington. But let me say this to you. You come out to my neck of the woods, I live out in the country, and when I'm outside and people drive by, we wave, we say hi to each other, just in passing. So that's something I really enjoy about my community. But also, I think too, because I raise sheep, so they see all my sheep. Right now there's a bunch of lambs that are around, so they think that's pretty cool. But let me go back to you on this next one. As a nation, because there is a lot of violence going on, and as a nation in a whole, do you think America is a racist nation?
In some ways, yes. It's just been embedded in our country from looking and studying history. My history in particular, I literally cried when I heard a white professor teach some of the history that went back when the country first became a country, and
Sure,
how.
and I agree with that. But today, as we stand here today,
Well,
do you feel it's
yes,
because
there
you know
are-
what? I wasn't here 160 years
Yeah,
ago.
well, yes, that's the point I'm getting to. It's embedded. And will it ever go away? No, because that's just the character and the nature. Can we get to a point where we can agree to disagree, or leave people to be who they are? Maybe, I don't know, but there will always be some sense of racism and discrimination.
Well, would you say it's more on the lines of prejudice than racism?
A little bit of both.
Okay, all right.
A little bit of both.
Okay. John, what do you think?
I don't believe that the nation itself is racist. I believe there are racist people. I believe that we've made tremendous strides as a nation to rectify a lot of the things that we have. And we still have ways to go, right? We still have a lot of things to do. I think right now the divisiveness falls right now on the line in the United States is with racism. And I really think that in my opinion, I believe we're creating more of a divide on the racist line. I liken back to when I was growing up in the 90s. We talked about people don't see color. We watched shows like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I never looked at it as a Mexican and meant, man, look at this black family. They're fantastic. I just said, look at this guy's hilarious, and this is a great show. And I've spoken with a lot of people from the communities, whites, blacks, and they said, yeah, it was different back then. And it doesn't mean that racism didn't exist at all, but I believe that the institutions themselves have done a pretty good job, and it still exists. I believe there's still racism in institutions as well, and I think we're doing a fair job. I wouldn't say good job, but I think we're doing a fair job of identifying that. And I believe that that racism exists on the individual basis, but I don't think America as a whole is a racist nation. I believe that there's a lot of people that just want to live their lives, and they want to be able to react with people and hang out with people and not have race interjected at all. I've met true racists before, and those racists, those true people who are racist, wouldn't even sit in a chair next to these ladies at all. They couldn't be in the same room. They couldn't have a
They
conversation.
probably wouldn't want to sit next to you either, right?
Well, probably not. No, or they would hire me to do some things. That's stereotypical, right? That's just what it is.
Yeah.
But again, racism exists. I don't believe America is inherently a racist nation. It was built on foundations that we would consider racist today, but back in the day, it didn't exist, and it wasn't considered racist. It was just how things operated. It doesn't mean it was right, but it's just the way that it was considered. Now, if we had done that today in today's world, it would be
Yeah, I like
completely
to remind people that back in the 1700s, there wasn't a nation in the world that didn't agree that slavery was okay. It happened in America. There were black slaves, but you went to the Middle East and they had everyone else except for Arabs and so forth and that. So, but Melissa, what's your thoughts?
So the question is,
Is the nation as a whole itself, is it racist?
no, I do not believe that the nation as a whole is racist. We have to remember where the history of race came from. All right, so the idea of race is a social construct. And the idea of race was created to really just as an economic way of deciding who could own land and who could not own land. That's where it came from. It was an economic tool that was used to decide who could keep their land, which is why my family, for instance, lost their land. So it wasn't about racism, it was about deciding from an economic tool who could advance economically in this nation and who could not. So because of that, from then on, what you started to see is that there were laws that were put in place to deny opportunity, more so than about the fact that a person's skin color is different or anything else like that. Did that play a part in it? Absolutely, that did. But that's from a historical perspective. Now we bring ourselves to current, to date. America is a human nation, and with humans comes flaws. And with flaws comes people who will judge you based off of your physical exterior, whether it's the color of your skin, whether it's your gender, whether it is your height, your weight. You know, we are humans, and because we're humans, we're tribal by nation, which means, or by nature, which means that we typically want to be with people who look like, who speak like, who believe like we do. That doesn't make you a racist. And so I think that we need to be careful when we're using that term, because it's kind of become the term of the moment. And with that is, I think it's being used very irresponsibly. It's being used to trigger people emotionally. It's being used to hammer people. It's being used to cancel people. And so when we're talking about the results of oppressive policies, then let's talk about the results of those oppressive policies and how we then can come again to the table to decide, where do we go from here? Because as long as we litigate what happened back in the day, it's never going to get us to where we want to go. And I think that's why not having a sense of vision, not having a sense of mission, not understanding who we are as a country is the reason why we can be distracted. If it's not racism, I guarantee you it will be another topic that comes up. Not too many years ago, it was about class and the top 1% or the 5%, or, you know, so people will always find ways to divide us. People will always find ways to state a case as to the reason why they believe certain things are that way. And I just would rather not entertain that conversation, because I'm solution oriented. I want to get to the solutions. We could talk about problems forever. So let's get to the solutions, and let's get to where we want to be so we can be stronger as a nation, acknowledge what happened in the past, but we have to move on.
You know, I like your answer there. I mean, it was fantastic. You know, I truly believe race is the tool that is being used by those who want to keep us divided.
Absolutely, it is.
And so I love your answer. So I'm gonna go last topic that I'd like to touch on, and it's been great talking with you folks. Where's it at? Let me get the card here. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you trust the elected politicians that are leading this country? Let's start with you, Melissa.
The current ones?
Yes.
And one being do not trust, and 10 being totally trust?
Yes.
I am 0.
Yours. That wasn't on there, but okay. John.
If you could do negatives, I would probably be there too.
Okay.
That's it's unfortunate, but that's where I'm at.
I absolutely don't trust.
What would you give him?
Wow. Because I voted. So I must have some level of trust if I voted. I can't say 0, because if I voted, then I had some level of trust. But I guess I would say it would be in the between 1 and 5.
Okay.
Because I voted.
Sure.
So,
And
and if I voted, I had some kind of trust that it would be something different.
And I agree. You trust the process because
That's right.
that is what's there for us.
That's right.
It's just that it seems like
That's all we have.
who we elect, they
Yes.
go there and it's like, wait a
That's
minute.
all we have.
You didn't tell me you were going to do this or
Yes.
that. And
Human again.
Yeah.
We have flaws, so.
yeah. So that being said, one last question, because I think your answer is typical answer of the average American, and it seems like we get duped. And it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever party. It seems like we are all dissatisfied with the outcome of the individual we elected, who we believe in. And so I want to bring it back, you might say, put a mirror to myself. And one of the things I do now, I have a litmus test. There are some things that I believe in wholeheartedly, unconditional, that if you're for this, we're good. If you're against it, you do not have my vote, no matter whether you got an R or a D in front of your name. That doesn't matter to me anymore, because this is where I draw the line. So start with you. Do you have an issue that you refuse to compromise on and vote for an individual, whether it's a Democrat or Republican?
My views would stem from my religious beliefs.
Okay.
So, and this is just me. We have a saying, love the sinner, but hate the sin.
Sure.
So, based on that, I love individuals as people, but I don't totally agree with some behaviors and things that has been allowed to be in this country because it's having a negative effect on our future generation. It's causing them to be confused and messed up, and that's why we have a lot of high suicide rate among them because they don't know where else, they don't know, they're confused, they're just, so I don't want to mention any specific out of respect to people, but I'm going to have to go with my religious belief, love the sinner, but hate the sin.
Okay. John, is there an issue?
Yeah, so if I'm looking at issues and I've got two great candidates, one's a Democrat and one's a Republican, and they've got different ideas and different values. I think if there's one, there's probably a couple others, but one that sticks out in my head right now for me is abortion. I don't view it as a women's rights thing. I feel it's a moral issue more than anything else. I feel the killing of anything that's innocent to me is wrong. And it's not me trying to restrict a woman's right. It's I want women to have more rights than guys, and with my past ex-girlfriends, I think they did have more rights than I did. But that being said, I just feel like that's a moral issue to me, in killing an innocent human being. And I don't believe that any person, man or woman, should have the ability to push their finger and make that happen. So
Okay.
that would be a downvote for me if someone supported that.
Mona Lisa?
And I'm pro-life.
Okay.
So again, abortion would be the issue. Honestly, the candidate could have everything right, but if they are pro-abortion, they will not get my vote.
Good. And the reason why I asked that question, because I think therein lies our problem. Because we have not decided that, okay, I will not tolerate this. And because we have not set our own principles in place before we go in that voting booth, we go there and we say, well, I'm Republican, I can't vote for that Democrat. So even though that Democrat has the issues that I agree upon, I'm going to vote for the Republican because I'm Republican, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. I'm a Democrat. Mm-hmm. That Republican is everything I stand for, but that's my party. And I think as an Americans, until we take an honest look at ourselves and say, I'm not compromising my conviction, and you, my representative, you don't represent me, you'll never get my vote again. Mm-hmm. And I think when we get that, we will we'll get candidates or we'll get office holders who will vote or who will lead as we want. And I think most Americans believe like you folks do.
Sure.
Like we believe. And as a result, because we don't take that stand, we get what we want. Well, let me thank each one of you for coming out. I appreciate this, and I look forward to doing this again. And because I really think it's individuals like you who in the world, in the bigger picture, appear to be insignificant, but you are in the community. You talk to individuals, whether it's in your church or in your groups, and you can have an impact in your community. So once again, thank you, and look forward to having this on the Minority Voice. And until next time, Joshua 24:15.